voices in the blackest night, spinning tales of emerald light. Myron and Phil with the banter tight, lantern stories taking flight. Heroes clad in emerald light, cosmic battles in the dark of night. Guardians calling from the galactic height, power rings are shining bright. Tune in for the mighty lore, legends that you can't ignore. From Mogo to Sinestro's war, the podcast of Oed gives you more.
Hey, Green Lantern fans, welcome back to the podcast of Oa. This is episode number 257. I'm your co-host, Myron Rumsey, and I am joined by my friend on the other end, Mr. Phil Bova. Phil, my friend, it's been a while. It's been a while. How are things going with you?
It has. Things are going great. We're winding down the school year, so got about 8 more weeks or something like that to go. So it's
Great.
clocking down. It's gonna be
Great.
great.
I, apologize to people that we haven't been on in a while. I've been elbow deep in rehab and physical therapy and occupational therapy on my leg and my arm since the stroke. And I have just been so exhausted. I've been coming home. I'm also back to work now. So I've been coming home every day and pretty much crashing. In the days I have physical therapy, I end up coming home early and sleeping most of the night. So I just have not had the energy. But for folks that want to know how I'm doing, and I've had a few people reach out and ask how I'm doing, so I'll just share it here. They estimated I lost about 60% of the strength and coordination on my left arm and leg. So that's where all the energy's been focused, is in trying to get a lot of that back. And I've gotten back a little more than half of the use and strength in my left leg. I'm walking now without a cane, which is great. I haven't had a reassessment on my arm, but when I just had a grip test the other day, I started out 2 months ago, essentially, generating 60 pounds of force with my right fist and right hand, squeezing things, and only about 20 pounds of force in my left hand. I've got my left hand back to 60 pounds. So making some really good progress. I want to thank people again for their kind thoughts, and I won't get as emotional about it this time, I promise. Um, but really, what's gotten me through this work, and I've really been pushing myself hard, and I keep asking them to up everything. Uh, but what's been getting me through is the support of my friends and my family, my amazing wife Debbie, who's been with me every step of the way. And I know it's going to sound corny, but Green Lantern has helped me get through some of this stuff. When I've been doing the therapy and I feel like I can't do any more of it, I've been wearing my manly band, the manly band we got, the Green Lantern manly band. I wear that when I go to physical therapy, and when I feel like I can't do any more, I'll think about the ring and I'll focus on it, and I'll push through and do a couple more, and that's helping me get back quicker. And I may not get it all back, and I fully accept that. But if I can get back 80% of what I had, that's good enough for me. People, when they ask me how I am, I say, well, I'm better than I was, but I'm not as good as I used to be. And
That's your that's usually the case, right?
right.
The main point
It's
is you're still here, man, brother.
yeah,
You're still here. You're still with us. I mean,
they're not
but
going to get rid of me.
right. And talking to you, it doesn't look like you skipped a beat. Um, things haven't changed. I mean,
No,
I
I
don't
haven't
know.
had the energy. I haven't had the energy to do videos. I haven't had the energy to write articles. My typing is starting to get better. So I'm going to probably start writing some things again. I'm also thinking about making more YouTube videos beyond the podcasts stuff. I just haven't sat down and do it all. I've got, if you notice, I've got a bit of a mess behind me. I'm redoing all my drawer boxes and replacing them because I've had them for a long time. The bottom ones are starting to sag a little bit, so I'm replacing all of them. So I've got a bit of a mess in the background. I've also bit off more than I can chew, 'cause I don't think I can pull one of those drawers out to save my life right now.
What you
But
need is to hire yourself a carpenter to go back there and make it a nice little cutout area where you can just nice pull out shelves.
yeah, there's a company that makes those shelves, and they'll make them to fit. But I'm just not ready to spend that kind of money yet.
Probably pretty pricey. I would do it.
They're well worth it though. They're all wood and everything. I'm waiting because my wife and I are talking about, once I retire next year, potentially moving. And if I move, well, that's going to change all of that. So part of me is waiting. It may be my retirement gift to myself. I don't know. But anyway, we've got Green Lantern stuff to talk about. This episode, we're going to get caught up with the main Green Lantern series. We're going to talk about Green Lantern 20, Green Lantern 21. We're also going to do a segment on lanterns because there's been a whole lot of casting news. And rather than try to cram it into Green Lantern news, we might as well make it its own segment. Plus, we have some set photos I want to share with you that one of the members of our Blog of Bova Facebook group posted, and I want to share some of those, and I'll obviously give credit where credit is due for that. Um, some Green Lantern news in terms of the Gunverse and Warner Brothers and so on. They announced My Adventures with Green Lantern as a spinoff of the My Adventures with Superman animated series and a Superpowers animated series, which I would assume is going to have a Green Lantern in it. Which one I don't know. We know that Jessica Cruz is going to be the lead in My Adventures with Green Lantern. I don't know about you, Phil, but when I heard that they were doing a Superpowers cartoon, were you thinking the old action figures?
Howard, they better have the Wonder Twins in there. And if I know James Gunn, I think he will utilize those characters. He just
I hope so.
Gunn seems like the type of I mean, come on, look at Creature Commando, right? I mean, there's so many offshoot characters that he threw in there for animation. The Wonder Twins got to get their part. I mean, they're long overdue,
These are both geared towards younger audiences,
which would make it even better for them.
which is interesting because they've been removing a lot of the animated content from the Max channel because they're trying to get away from juvenile content. Now, I don't know if you heard, but they removed all the Looney Tunes stuff. So they're removing a lot of content there. So it's kind of a schizoid kind of a thought process. I don't really know what their thoughts are, but it'll be interesting. I've caught a couple of episodes of My Adventures with Superman. Not really for me, but I'm not the target audience either, so I totally get that. But I'm kind of hoping the
Green Lantern.
Superpowers is kind of cool, but
When's
we'll
the
see.
Green Lantern one start? Did it say?
I don't know if they gave a start date. Maybe they did. To be honest, I've only had half of an eye on looking at the news and stuff while I've been focusing on recovery, so I'm not sure if they've gotten into it too much.
So here's my beef with that. So they're going to go out of their way to do My Adventures with Green Lantern. And that's great. That's all well and good. It's more content. I'll take it. But yeah, they're going to pass up an opportunity to not do a Green Lantern animated series, to couple off where the first season ended.
Yeah, it seems like they want to cut off everything from the past.
That's what it seems like. It seems like I mean, and I think that's a smart thing to do. I mean, I was talking to my wife earlier because she was asking what we're going to talk about. And a lot of what I was thinking about with this whole divisiveness with the fan base. I mean, it get made worse by Zack Snyder, and it just caused a
Yeah,
big division, right? And I don't think anybody's fully recuperated yet because they're still waiting for the train to leave the station with the new content. Now presumably Superman's supposed to be the the one to do that. So I guess it's going to be the make or break content because behind the scenes talk about that isn't very polite. If it doesn't do
right,
well, guess what? We all might get screwed in the end. But
right. There's a lot of things hinging on the success of this movie.
yeah. So
So we'll see. Other news, there's some more McFarlane figures being made. They recently came up with a Guy Gardner, and they came up with a Guy Gardner with his when he wore the yellow power ring of Sinestro for a while. Those two figures, but they're coming out with a Red Lantern version of Guy Gardner soon. There's also an armored suit version of Hal from the Return of Superman story arc. And then there's Super Friends versions of Hal and Sinestro coming out. So more merchandise. That's always good. It's like, how much can you get? I've run out of room. I have totes full of stuff in my basement because I don't have enough room for all the stuff that I've gotten accumulated over the years. I have like a rotating collection up here.
I mean, I got a pretty hefty haul myself. Now, not all just centrally Green Lantern stuff. Mine's just a hodgepodge of, well, it's mainly Green Lantern, but it's a hodgepodge of everything else that's my favorites. Favorites.
You have eclectic tastes. That's what you have
Yeah.
to go
I mean,
with.
yeah.
It sounds fancy. Uh, the other piece of news, I don't know if it's so much news, but it's a story that kind of emerged on social media about Morgan Hampton, the co-writer of the new Green Lantern Corps book. and he's coming off in some of his old posts, kind of like Jeff Thorne 2.0. In some of his comments, it seems like he may have gone to the Thorne School of Assholery, and graduated magna cum laude. He had a post from a few years ago where he said, "Hey, real quick, I just want to say F Hal Jordan." Uh, and then he had another. I'll put the pictures of the screen captures up so you can see them. And then there was another one where they had one of those. One of these has got to go, and it was a picture of Hal and Beta Ray Bill, Mr. Miracle, and Nova. And he said Hal could get effed. And then he, at another point,
Wait a minute.
said,
So he was in a category with Beta Ray Bill.
"Yep, Nova and Mr.
Nova.
Miracle." And it was the question was one has got to go. And he said his response was Hal can get effed.
Well, first
Uh,
of all, I mean, before you finish that, first of all, I'm going to challenge him on this. I mean, Hal Jordan has more writing content that's character based that goes back decades more than Nova ever has.
I
So
know,
you want to
I
talk
know.
about that? I mean, let's talk about the shallowness of Nova. Why would you gotta go?
Right, right. Well, and then there was another post where he just came out and said Hal Jordan is the lamest character of all time. And when someone said to him, "You forgot Pace Pot Pete exists," he put a post up and then he later deleted it. It said, struggling comic book artist 100, obnoxious redhead 100, ex-military and architect 100, poozer 100, cookie cutter fighter pilot with a trash can emoji. So I don't know where DC finds these people that are dipshits when it comes to public, to social media. But it's a
And
it's a horrible look. It's a really a
it's
horrible look.
it's distasteful. You know, if you're
Yeah,
going to be in the public spotlight, you know, you want to. I mean, like you and I riff on Batman, I riff on
sure.
I riff on characters. But you know what? I don't get on social media, let alone the fact I'm not writing for the comic books now. I'm not writing for the industry. I'm not writing for DC. But I don't get on social media and I F Batman this and F Batman that and start riffing.
Right.
That just doesn't make sense,
If you
right?
want to have a strong opinion about something that is not related to your field of work, have at it. But when you're in an industry of any kind, the last thing you should be doing is being an asshole when it comes to content related to your field of work. It's
Right.
like a music producer saying that they can't stand Paul McCartney and thinks he's the worst artist ever, and then being given the rights to produce a Beatles record, right? You're writing a Green Lantern Corps
Good
book,
analogy, right?
and you've in the past made dumbass comments about the most iconic character in that franchise. So it's kind of a stupid look. He hasn't said anything recently, but people have saw those, and of course they've been sharing them and saying, "Hey DC, what's up with hiring this guy?" I
It's just
think,
distasteful. It's unprofessional. You
yeah,
know, you keep your personal opinion out, and I understand that not all these writers can keep every aspect of their lifestyle out of their writing content, political, religious, whatever. But your personal viewpoints on your character when you're writing them, I mean, that's going to come out in your writing. And I got news for you. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to read that book that Hal may do something or Hal may say something and be like, yeah, that's not the how he should be written.
right. I had those problems with Jeff Thorne. He talked about how, well, I'm going to be a professional writer. I'm not going to let my thoughts get in the way, my feelings about the character get in the way. But yet, you and I discussed this. Is Hal Jordan the kind of guy who's going to sit out on Earth and hide out just because some no-name lantern he's never met tells him to stay there when his friends are in trouble and potentially dying? No, he's not going to do that. Or is Hal the kind of guy that when he sees a gauntlet, much like the Chrono Gauntlet that he himself used, he's going to let some untried and tested Green Lantern use that in a moment where it could backfire and kill the person? No, he's not going to do that. He's going to be like, I got more experience with that. Let me do it. Let me put myself in danger. Uh, that's the character. So don't say you didn't let your bias get in the way because you didn't write the character true to the character. And it creates that for those of us like myself who are very cautious with how things are being done with Hal these days. You get somebody who's going to co-write a Green Lantern Corps book who has these strong opinions. Of course, we're going to be much more sensitive to the writing of that writer. And I think right now, what's going on with the Green Lantern Corps book, at least in my opinion, is much like when Robert Venditti and Van Jensen were doing the Green Lantern books, where Robert Venditti was writing Green Lantern and Van Jensen eventually wrote Green Lantern Corps, but Robert Venditti worked with him in the beginning because Van Jensen had never worked on a book for the big two. And I kind of feel like this is the same way in that Morgan Hampton will probably eventually write this book on his own, but right now he's kind of under the tutelage of Jeremy Adams. That's the way I see it. That may not be what happens at all, but that's at least the way I'm perceiving it at this moment in time. So to have somebody like this who's made these kind of strong statements and fans have discovered them in whatever way, I didn't go looking for them myself, but I saw other people posting them and saying, yo, DC, why are you hiring somebody who's got this kind of an opinion and letting them? I mean, it'd be different if he was writing Batman or Superman or Wonder Woman or whatever, but he's writing this franchise, and here's what he said about characters in this franchise. So,
Right.
we'll see. I'm going to try not to let it color my opinion of the book until I see something that makes me think otherwise. Um,
And you will.
oh, I will. Yeah, I will. I'm good. I'm now watching it and scrutinizing it in a different way, and that's stay stupid shit, win stupid prizes. It's people are have shared it. It's died down a little bit since it first came out. We're 2 issues in. We'll see. Hal hasn't shown up yet, and I quite frankly hope he doesn't in the Green Lantern Corps book. So, see, I am my old self.
Hello, listeners. You can tell it's been a while since Myron.
So I want to talk about lanterns. I didn't want to make it part of our Green Lantern news stories because there's been an awful lot of information that has come out since you and I recorded last. I'll just run down some of the casting really, really quickly. Nicole Arie Parker has been cast as Bernadette Stewart, John Stewart's mother. So they've name changed John Stewart's mother. An actress by the name of Jasmine Cephas Jones is going to play a younger version of Bernadette, which says we're going to get flashbacks. Sherman Augustus is playing John Stewart Sr., John Stewart's father. And J. Alphonse Nicholson is playing a young John Sr., which also says to me that they are completely changing John's backstory and that John's father is still in the picture.
I wonder why though. I mean, whatever. I'll disagree or not disagree. It doesn't, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. But my question is, what's the point, right? I mean, why change the mom's name? I think I mentioned this before with other stuff we've had. It's like that's an insignificant thing that you're changing the name of John's mom from the book. I mean, same could be. Why don't you just change John Stewart's name then?
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's something that Gunn or whoever is in charge of this thing said, yeah, I want a different mom's name. I don't get that.
I don't either, but again, we're talking about Tom King. I think Tom King is more heavily involved in the show than James Gunn is. I think James Gunn, they've pitched the show and he just read it and said, yeah, let's do it. And I don't think he's very hands-on at all in any of this. But
Tom
why
King does not know Green Lantern.
why would you change all of that background? I mean, one of John's biggest weaknesses as a character is he's not well defined. And if every time he's going to get adapted, you're going to change his entire background, how is he ever going to have any stability? Back when in the 90s, when the animated series came out of Justice League, they made John Stewart a Marine. He was never a Marine. He never had a military background. And so when Jeff Johns and some of those writers were doing things later on, they felt compelled that they had to somehow incorporate that. Well, we just have had a story revolving around the death of his mother and so on, but we're going to completely ignore that apparently in this show, which to me doesn't bode well because if I were as big of a John Stewart fan as I was a Hell fan, I'd be upset that you're changing everything that we know about the character just to tell a story. Why can't you use what we know and tell a story? And I feel that way about other things about this show, but I just thought that in itself was a little odd. Obviously, we're going to get flashbacks. Interesting that we've got casting for John Stewart's parents, but nothing about Hal's supporting cast, which again underlies the suspicion about how Hal is going to be treated in the show. Other casting, Jason Ritter is cast as Billy Macon. And this ties together, the description ties together a couple of the other characters in the story. They've talked about William Macon being a character who's kind of being portrayed in the write-up so far as being maybe the villain of the story. He is married to the sheriff in the town, the female character that may be a love interest for Hal. Well, Jason Ritter's character is Billy Macon, who is married to that character and the son of William Macon, the character we saw before that they talked about. So that's kind of interesting dynamic. And then an actor by the name of Chris Coy is playing a character called Waylon Sanders, who is being described as a nervous truck driver or an intelligent survivor whose real name is unknown. Uh, so far, none of the characters are familiar names from the comics, which underscores some of the concern people have had with Tom King's involvement because he tends to just do whatever he wants to do because he thinks he's telling some kind of an amazing story. And
Story's one. I mean, the story's one thing. If you're going to tell a story, that's fine, but have the components there that make the story a whole, right? I mean,
right, right.
you can't just. I don't know. If I'm a creative, if I'm a creative person, you can't just shoehorn this in here and take out bits and pieces of
Yeah,
a narrative, because it becomes skewered that way. And then not only that, you confuse the viewers, right? Or the readers for that matter.
right. You wouldn't suddenly change Martha Kent to Matilda Kent.
Right.
These
Right.
are these characters are iconic characters. Then not that the supporting cast necessarily is iconic as Mom and Pa Kent. Certainly they're not, but you can be beholden to and respectful to the source material and still tell a new story. And I think
That's
that's
why I
what
always,
sometimes gets fans riled up is that these are beloved characters. We have emotional investments in these characters. We want to see them represented in the way that we're familiar with them because that's what we've fallen in love with. That's what we're emotionally invested in. Some
well,
people don't feel that way. They just want to see a good story and they don't care. But a lot of us do.
at the end of the day, I just think it's silly. Like I think it's silly and I think it's lazy, right? It's like you have resources that you can use, right? So why automatically just put somebody else in there, and build and something else when you have
Yeah,
resources when you could have that same person in there. So
sure.
it doesn't matter who it is. Nervous truck driver, I don't know. Maybe it's part of the story arc and this person's name. I
Yeah.
don't know. It says Waylon Sanders, whose real name is unknown.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know, Bruce Wayne. It looks like Bruce Wayne. Maybe if he makes those leathers up, it's Bruce
It's
Wayne.
it's Batman. He's gonna pop up in the last episode.
Batman's and everything.
If the
I
ratings
don't
aren't good, that's what they're gonna do. That's their back door if the ratings aren't good.
it's just lazy writing to me. And
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm cool with whatever they're gonna do, and I'll be judgmental when I see it, and I'll give it a fair chance.
I
But but
I'm not sure I'm doing that yet, but the other thing they just recently said was that Nathan Fillion will be there as Guy Gardner, which is interesting because they said that early on, but then James Gunn came out and said, well, the Lantern Show and some of these other things aren't connected to the DCU at large. Like almost like this is almost like an Elseworlds. But yet if Nathan Fillion is going to show up as Guy Gardner, it kind of makes it feel like it is connected, but maybe it's a different version of Guy Gardner. Who knows?
well, that makes even
It,
that makes
it
even
makes even
less
less
sense.
sense, but it also makes less sense if Guy and Hal are around the same age. Hal's retiring, according to this plot description. Hal's going to retire and give his ring to John. What's Guy Gardner doing? Is he just hanging around?
Unless they kill them
And
off.
and again, they're ignoring parts of the history. Guy Gardner has kept himself young for years with his power ring. That's been something that's been an ongoing thing for quite a while now. But yeah, here we've got a really, I think it's ridiculous looking. I think the the whole point is James Gunn didn't really care about Guy Gardner. He just wanted to make Nathan Fillion have to have a bowl cut. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Uh,
I think if it was more red, I might
it,
like it more.
it would be more, but also Guy has a character arc, right? He was much more abrasive and so on in the beginning. He's mellowed over time, and now he's more of just a smug smartass. He's not this over the top thing. And to hear Nathan Fillion talk about his portrayal of Guy, it's like, okay, we're getting old Guy Gardner without the character evolution.
And here's a side note to the Guy Gardner part. Can you imagine a cool guy like Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner playing next to Jason Momoa as Lobo? Can you imagine what those two would be like? I mean,
Hmm.
that would be, I would read
Yeah,
the crap out of that book.
right.
I mean, that would be hilarious.
Yeah, there's a lot you could do, but I just I know we've talked about it, but I just feel like they're throwing away the baby with the bathwater, and there's much more potential to have more great stories by not doing what they're doing with some of these characters. But anyway, over on Facebook, one of our Blog of Ova group members named Ed Stanton has been able to get some pictures from the set of the show. So I'm going to put them up here as they go. But there's sets of the pictures of the sets, and there are a couple pictures of some of the filming. The one that really struck me as interesting is there's a picture of John Stewart, which looks like he's wearing almost either like medical robes or inmate robes, getting out of a car with a pistol in his hand. And he looked like he's barefoot. So I don't know what's going on. But it's interesting. There's no pictures of Kyle Chandler from there. There's another picture we'll talk about here in a few minutes, but I just want to kind of scroll to let people see these photos from the set. Again, courtesy to Ed Stanton for sharing these on Facebook. And I probably should have reached out and asked for his permission to repost them, but
Is he there?
I'll
I
beg
mean,
permission. What's that?
is he on set? Is he in the area?
I think he has found out where they're shooting and has gone there. He had some pictures that he took they were there were no people on the set. So I think he's found out where the set is and he's gone and taken some pictures. That's certainly what it looks like. And one of the pictures looks like there's people watching the filming. So I think they're kind of not being too closed in what they're doing. But you'll see some of the sets, their facades. Some look like their buildings have been redressed. There's nothing there that says Green Lantern in any way. But again, I don't think that the setting of this story is in anything that connects to anything we've ever seen before. So I wouldn't expect there to be. Not like in the Green Lantern movie where you had Broom's Bar, named after John Broom, is the bar where Carol Ferris and Hal were meeting in that one scene in the 2011 movie.
I like
There's
that
none of those.
stuff.
Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. I don't mind there's no Easter eggs in here, but they're going for whatever they're going for. We'll see. I mean, and there's been some comments from the cast about the script and the director about the show and the what they're going for, and they're all raving about it. But of course, they're going to because they're making the show and it's their livelihood, right? Uh, Kind of the biggest news that came out about Green Lanterns since you and I recorded was that promotional picture that they released, that official picture they released of Kyle Chandler and the actor playing John walking down the road, and Hal's in his flight jacket and stuff, and he's wearing a ring, and John's there too. And that was the photo they chose to release, and it kind of got some mixed reactions. Basically, because they look like they both had been like living under a bridge for a while. um, and I don't know if that was the best look to give them. I mean, it just looks like two guys walking down the road. If you didn't know it was Hal and John from the Lantern Show, it could be from anything really. But there's nothing that says Lantern in any of it other than Hal wearing a bomber jacket, and not the exact right bomber jacket, but close enough. The big thing was though is, and I'll put the picture up here, and then I'll show you this close up. Somebody got a really good high quality picture look of the ring because you can see Hal wearing his ring, and I know I'm a downer about the show,
Kind of
but
looks like the ring from the movie.
kind of. But the thing that got me was that the center circle part isn't so much circular as it is rectangular.
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
It
I'm
seems
looking
kind of squished,
right.
but and maybe it's the angle. I don't know. But that didn't set off any like, oh, look at the ring design. I felt that the ring design for the 2011 movie was much cooler. This just looks like a generic ring. There's nothing about it that says Green Lantern other than kind of the Green Lantern logo in it. So I'm still I'm not cautiously optimistic at this point. I'm just kind of like, I'm not even sure if I'm going to watch this thing. I've already canceled my Max subscription.
Have you?
Yeah.
I can't do that. My wife watches Friends all the time.
Oh,
All the time. And I watch Big Bang all the time, so it's fair. I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna see what it's like. I mean, I don't claim to be an expert in material, and neither, I mean, you know a lot more about stuff than I do, but at the end of the day, it's like, I don't know. I just feel like they're doing a different direction than what you and I mean, we're in our 50s, right? And it's like
You are.
I am. We're over 50. So I don't know what our average age group for our viewers is. And I don't know what the average age group that their target audience is trying to reach. I would imagine the content they're creating, like the animated thing, the Green Lantern stuff, I'd imagine they're trying to get at the young adults, kids. I showed Clark the new preview for the Superman movie, and he said there's a Green Lantern in it. I said, yeah, they're going to show him, and of course, oh, there he is, because he knew who he was with the ring, but he's just
Sure.
involved in hero stuff. He's more into Minecraft and Super Mario and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I don't know what their target is. I don't know who they're trying to gear this for.
Well, I look at it a couple different ways. If you're skewing towards the people that grew up in the 90s, using Jon Stewart makes sense because they watch the animated series and that's all they know. But if you look at the success of Green Lantern starting in the 2000s, those fans, if they were reading the comics or watching things, they saw primarily Hal. So why would you cut off either one of those audiences? Why, when you had the potential to win everybody, why wouldn't you?
I mean, yeah,
This isn't Highlander. There doesn't have to be only one, right?
apparently there does. There's 30,
Yeah,
there's
apparently
7,200 lanterns, man. We just want to whittle it down to one Earth lantern.
that's it, right?
Gotta be
Uh,
John Stewart.
I feel the same, the same way in reading the Green Lantern Corps comic. It's like I thought it was neat to see the Interceptor, nice little Easter egg. I don't know whether I like the idea of Razor being an ongoing character. I thought it was neat to see him for that little cameo thing, but I don't know if I care about seeing him as an ongoing character. I certainly don't like the John Stewart Hawkgirl thing and reliving the 90s all over again. Um, I I don't want to see that continuity bleed
Well,
over.
here's the thing. I mean, Hawkgirl's going to be in the Superman movie, and if you got Nathan Fillion appearing in the Lanterns series, there's a good chance they may go down that road, which I am okay with because I thought their relationship was cool. I
See,
or I liked fatality, but to get to a fatality, we're gonna have to get through 10 more years. You will be dead. There won't be a fatality.
I would do it in a completely different manner. If I were King of the Forest, I would play up bringing in Sinestro and doing the Sinestro Corps War. But I would preface it before I did the Sinestro Corps War. I would show the fall of Sinestro, which we've never seen in live action. But I would, because one of the problems with John Stewart is he doesn't have any arch villains. He has villains, but not very many arch villains. You could argue Fatality, but he doesn't. Yeah, every Green Lantern has a foe of Sinestro, but Sinestro's relationship with the rest of them is completely different than his relationship to Hal. But if you did the fall of Sinestro and you had Kat Matui becoming his replacement, and Sinestro hating Kat Matui, and Kat Matui and John Stewart becoming a thing, now you've got some real friction between Sinestro and John Stewart, and you could build that relationship too, which you can't do in a you can create that dynamic, but it's going to be artificially created. It's not going to be created in a way that seems true to the source material. And if you're not going to be reverential to the source material, I don't mind it's a new story. I want to see new stories with these characters, but be reverential to the source material. It's not that hard. It just takes creativity, which apparently is lacking.
I would agree with that. Or common sense.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I would first of all, I wouldn't hire Tom King to run my show. I mean, but
Mm.
whatever.
Yeah, right, right. The last picture I'll put up here for people to see, Ulrich Thompson, who's playing Sinestro, posted this picture of himself sitting on a couch, on this apparently on the set or somewhere on Warner Brothers, and he's rocking the mustache, and he's rocking the high hair bit. But I don't know. What was your opinion of that picture?
I think he's going to be cool. I think he's going to surprise. I mean, Mark Strong surprised me as Sinestro in the first one, and I thought he did an iconic job. But you got to remember, we don't have anything to juxtapose it next to, right? Besides him and besides the comic book. So your best,
He just looks like my grandpa sitting on the couch.
so your best interpretation is going to be, well, let's. I mean, I don't know. I think this guy's going to have to invent the character on screen. to make it more of a presentable type character.
Yeah,
I mean, that's all you can do, right? I mean, you got Mark Strong as your source material or the comic books. And if he's a good actor, he's reading his source material, which he should go back to the comic books to read. I mean, one prime example I would read the Sinestro Corps War if I was up for that role. I would read that,
sure, sure.
and I would read that through and through just to get a baseline on Sinestro at his height,
Yeah.
and then I would go back and read some redundant stuff or rudimentary stuff just to get some handle on his
Yeah,
character.
I might look at Secret Origin because that gives you the
Yeah.
seeds of that relationship and then jump to Sinestro Corps. I would do those two things. Um, I don't know. It didn't give me any confidence. I'll just put it that way. But
Like you said, I'm lukewarm about this whole idea, and at the end of the day, I could change my opinion. I may not. I don't know. I mean, I'm into other things. I'm into Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, so I just have to wait for the Lantern TV show to start before I can really, really throw eggs at the screen. Lucky part is I'm getting ready to get rid of my TV, so we're gonna get a new one, and hopefully that'll come around that time, and then I can throw anything I want at the other one and break the hell out of it, and then I can do one and not watch the rest of the series.
it's funny, I want to love it. I want to be enthusiastic. I'm not seeing anything that's instilling me with any kind of confidence in it whatsoever,
I
and
get it.
that's unfortunate.
And
Um,
that is sad. And they lose somebody because of it, right? I mean, now I'm not
right.
saying, and there's probably a lot of people that have your opinion. I guarantee.
There are. Oh, I guarantee it. There are. There are. Um, Again, I always look for the win-win. Why, but I guess that's why I'm not in charge of anything.
Same.
All right.
And
Well,
they
let's
don't want
take.
our opinions anyway, so
No, they don't care. Anyway, let's take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about Green Lantern issue 20 and 21.
In brightest day or blackest night, there's only one place to listen to the best in Green Lantern. That's the podcast of Oa.
All right, we're going to talk about Green Lantern issue number 20. This was an interesting book. I thought it was interesting because it juxtaposed this with the first issue of the Green Lantern Corps book. This has got Hal dealing with somebody who also is manifesting a color of the emotional spectrum. This time it's not fear, but it's rage. So we see this story unfold about a character by the name of Erastus on a planet called Alteon 10. And this poor guy, he can't get a break. He manifests rage, pretty much kills everybody. And Hal shows up, checking it all out, and he gets into a knockdown drag out fight with Erastus. Erastus gets the better of him at some points. And it's a fight which ends poorly for Erastus, but not because of anything Hal did, but it's almost like he was so full of rage he exploded. Uh, I guess that shows the instability of the emotional spectrum at this point. What did you think about that whole? We'll talk about the Kyle story separately because it's almost like two stories in the same issue.
I liked Erastus. I thought it was kind of a cool maker or a cool marker for a Red Lantern.
Yeah,
So it'd be cool to see. I don't know if he exploded or if he's gone or if he's. I don't know if he comes back to life. I don't know how this works anymore.
right, right. Yeah.
So
How does it work this week? I don't know.
hopefully we'll see him again. I mean, it's a little much killing everything, but I mean, it's a Red Lantern. Atrocitus has done worse, but
Right.
I hope he's a stay around. I mean, it'd be cool to see new types of Red Lanterns. I mean, I do like Bleeze and the cat Dexter, of course, but it'd be cool to see some newer Red Lanterns around.
I mean, it certainly feels like he died there because they talk about the death of Erastus. Um, in is the title of the story, The Life and Death of Erastus, the blacksmith. It certainly is implied that he has self-destructed, for lack of a better phrase. I like some of the constructs that were used, the giant sumo guy and the soccer player. I thought that was pretty cool.
Mhm.
One of the things I did like, there were some people talking about, how maybe it made Hal look bad because he couldn't talk Erastus down when Sinestro was able to talk the other character down. But I look at it differently in that part of the Jeff Johns philosophy of the emotional spectrum is the further away you get from the center, the less you can control the emotion, the more the emotion controls you.
Right.
So I could certainly see where Sinestro would have an easier time dealing with somebody who's yellow because yellow's closer to the center. Plus, it's a color that Sinestro is very, very familiar with. He's going to have an easier job than Hal is trying to bring somebody who's out on the far end that you
Mhm.
can't even reason with. You can't have a conversation with this character. You can't talk him down. He is so full of rage. I'm not sure if the rage is, if the amount of things that he suffered is equal to how rage filled he's shown as. I think of like a character like Bleeze, as you mentioned. Her backstory I found much more tragic than this guy.
I agree. I
So I
agree. And
didn't,
there was more depth to Blaze too.
yeah. I just didn't feel that in this case, okay, yeah, the guy got mistreated by the boss guy, and he got mistreated by the love of his bride or his bond his mate, and got mistreated by some of the other people. And maybe it's a lifetime of that kind of treatment, and just because we only see a snapshot, that's all we see. And that's what the story I kind of told myself because I was like, God, that doesn't, that's a crappy thing a life to have,
Hmm.
but that's not enough to make me become rage filled. I'd be more sorrow filled than rage filled. But if
No.
this is a whole lifetime of the same treatment, then maybe I could get behind that. But I thought that was interesting. The Kyle story was also, I thought, enjoyable with Kyle and Odyssey and Superboy. I thought that was neat. I
I
loved how they kind of channeled the Indiana Jones vibe.
I I like but this fits Kyle, right? Because
Yeah,
I mean, it feels Titans. You know,
you're right.
it feels that Titans thing, and that's kind of what I felt when I saw. And I really like all three of these characters together. I think they're doing really really good in the book. They're pretty strong together. So maybe hopefully at some point they do another Titans title. It'd be cool to see Kyle on it.
I almost wish they had separated it. I don't want to say treated Kyle as a backup. I split the book in two for the flow of the story. I thought it flowed better reading the two parts separately. But that's just a preference as a reader. But I enjoyed the whole, we're raiding the Promethean temple. And I like that we got to see more about Odyssey when Sorrow shows up and Odyssey seemingly gets away with things. And Sorrow shows up and basically makes her show back up, even though she's made herself kind of look like she's gone invisible, and makes her confront a fear. I thought that was, that was issue 21, come to think of
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
This
you're
one was more of them getting out of the temple. But I
right.
thought that these two should flowed well together. And I guess that's why I'm thinking about it as one thing. I do wish that the interceptor would be drawn the correct way, but it's great that it shows up, but man, make it fly in the right direction.
I mean,
We all know what it is.
well, how do we know? Wait a minute. Yeah, it is flying. Well, wait a minute. How do you know it's flying? Maybe it's just stationary.
Well, here they show it stationary, but when they've shown it fly, they have it flying backwards. And here, every time you see it, it's backwards.
Gotcha.
I know. I'm picking some
You know,
nits.
but see, but that's the joy of it, and that's when you want to talk to Adams and be like, "Hey, there's this thing I got about here's my little picadillos about Greenland."
He'll be like,
Then
I'm never coming
what
on
you
your show
should
again.
do it,
He'll be.
huh?
If he comes on, he'll be like, I'm never coming on your show again.
You should do five picadillos about about the lantern things that bother you, that rub you the wrong way, right? And you know,
But yeah, the issue ends with Starbreaker and Sorrow showed up. I apologize. I got my things confused. I read them both back to back a little while ago, prepping for the episode, and my brain damage. Um, so I was blending the two stories together. But it was fun seeing them together and doing the raiding of the temple thing, and Superboy walking through all the booby traps and setting them off because there was no kryptonite involved, and it was fun. It was much more lighter. You needed that lighter tone to go with how kind of dark the Erastus story was.
that's true. That's true. You can always count on Kyle for a light tone,
You needed the brevity, right?
right?
But, or I should say
What,
levity, not brevity.
what do you think about Starbreaker?
It's
So
interesting. It's an old character, so it's interesting to see him back and being a force for a change. Doing something more than a punchline. The last time we saw him, he was a punchline.
I made a
So
comment that it's like this whole Sorrow guy and Starbreaker being together was kind of reminiscent of like Black Hand and Necron, back in the
yeah, yeah, you definitely kind of get that vibe.
yeah, because I mean Starbreaker's obviously the one pulling the strings here, and he's obviously the more powerful one. I don't know
Yeah.
how far the Sorrow guy is gonna go. I mean, at some point, I don't know. I don't know. I like the guy. I don't like how he came to be, and I made a point of making that comment on the thread one time. I'm tired of the the jilted lover trope. It's stupid.
Yeah.
You can find another way for somebody to have sorrow besides being jilted by a former lover, and just coming after Hal because you're jealous or because you're jealous and pissed off because you
He
know.
should be more angry at Carol because Carol was never in love with him in the first place.
Well, that too. I mean, you get something with a little more depth than, oh, you broke my heart. I'm gonna come get you. I don't know. I mean, but he is drawn cool and he looks pretty cool. And I think the premise is kind of cool. I like the way they're going with this whole the whole fractured lantern stuff. And and maybe we'll start seeing more emotional content lanterns coming into play. My question is, since all the batteries are gone, where's he drawing his power from?
Yeah, it seems like they're just able to manifest it. There's a million unanswered questions which I'm not sure we're going to get the answers to. We just have to accept it as it is. They can manifest the ability to become a lantern out of anything. The thing is, if it's as simple that I guess that's where I struggle with a little bit when I try to put some reality or thinking about reality into it. With all the people going through everything they go on in their everyday life, it seems like we have a lot more of these characters popping up at different parts of the emotional spectrum, everywhere, all over the place.
Hmm.
Because there's millions of people who've got hard lives that are going to manifest the same things. I mean, you look at Nathan here, and he manifests sorrow because he got left at the altar. Certainly, it's a bad thing, but is it? There are people that I know more sorrow, who know a lot more sorrow than that.
That's what I mean, man. I mean, I had a lot of sorrow after my mom passed away.
Right, right.
I
Er,
mean, this guy must be pretty shallow or pretty one-dimensional character. If a jilted lover, if a
Yeah,
girl left him, and that's the premise of his origin
he
story.
knows that much sorrow because of this one thing. Now, maybe this is the not the first time it's happened to him, but it seems like you said very shallow. When you
Come
look
on,
at somebody
Nathan.
who the depth of pain when you lose a loved one and people die every minute of every day.
Look at Black Hand. I mean, that had
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
so much depth that you're like, whoa, that guy's gonna be. I mean, the whole first
I
part of Black Hand's creation when they redid his character was just like mind-boggling. And that's what had me at the go.
I think one of the criticisms I've heard of the Jeremy Adams run is that things are just thrown in there and they're not, I don't want to say earned, but they're not built up enough to give any depth to it. They're just kind of thrown in there really quickly. And I kind of see some of that. Some of these things just kind of happen rather quickly. And because there's no build up, you don't get invested in the story or you can't get behind the character because it's too superficial.
Right. And which is a lot what I feel about Nathan. I just think he's a official jackass. But he looks cool. I'll give him that. He looks
Oh
cool.
yeah.
And I hope that he does something worthy at least. Like, I don't know. I don't.
I think like you likened him to Black Hand to Necron, and I keep looking at it now. I know that Starbreaker is an emotional vampire, so I keep thinking Dracula and Renfield.
And that's also a good analogy too. I mean,
I think Starbreaker's using the Sorrow character to get what he wants, and when he gets what he wants or gets near the end, he's completely disposable.
well, then he's really going to be sorrowful then. Then he really has something to be sorrow
There you
about.
go. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, Nathan. All right, so here we are, issue 21, right?
Yep, issue 21.
Back to throw out the source wall with Superboy.
Yep, and now is the confrontation that I was talking about, where Sorrow is dealing with Odyssey and she disappears on him while Kyle and Superboy take on Starbreaker and seeming to make short work of him, mind you, until he goes all supersized and it makes it harder for them. I loved Hal showing up in the last second. I loved Nathan seeing and sensing Hal coming close. I thought that was cool. I'm trying to figure what the two gorillas are. And I was thinking Kong, obviously. I'm sure you were thinking Kong.
Kong and Grodd,
Yeah, okay, I could get with that.
maybe. That's
Or
what
just
I'm gonna stick with that.
or Kong and Mighty Joe Young for those of you who are old enough to remember Mighty Joe Young.
Or Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr.
There you go. There you go.
And
Pick your reference. Pick your reference.
whichever one you want.
But no, I thought that was cool to see the fighting. But then we get some character death for Odyssey, which I thought was interesting. It's just a little thing, but I thought it was kind of a cool touch. There's obviously more to this character than has been let on about her. You know, she seems rather one-dimensional. There's obviously more to it than that with her. I find her to be the breakout character
Her I
so
like.
far. Yeah.
And I like how she's drawn. I like her costume. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like the Sorrow Lantern's look too. I think it just look, but he looks a lot like the Black Lantern stuff and the Black Hand stuff and that's usually what I go for is the dark brooding character. I just wish it wasn't him. But I like his little mist act that he does
Yeah, yeah. Well, I like how he minds like he's using your sorrow against you, which I think is that part is interesting. I don't know if it's interesting enough for a whole character to be based around, but it's interesting. Oh, we go to Oa,
There's gonna be
and
a lot of sad people if they have a Sorrow Lantern Corps.
we go back to Oa, and they talk about Starbreaker and what the plan is and what they're doing and so on, and they come up with a plan. I don't know about you, but I'm really tired of the Kelly and Ellie show here.
I, I don't know. Whenever they get into this boardroom or whatever they're at, I don't. Jessica's running things, and that's all well and good, but it just seems like they're sitting behind a desk the whole time while everybody else is out doing stuff.
Well, and you notice that they're in this boardroom meeting. There's not one alien Green Lantern in this room.
Besides the Guardians, if you
Well, besides
count.
the Guardians, but yeah, there's no Salak, none of the other characters having a voice in this conversation,
It's
which
like
has been the
the
criticism we've had.
hierarchy of the GLC has been uprooted.
Right, right. It's just we've got a glut of human characters, and we've got to find a way to use them, I guess. Uh, Speaking of a glut of characters with the Kelly and Ellie show, like I said, I'm really kind of sick of that. Kelly is not a Green Lantern. Shh, get rid of her. Get her out of there. And did you notice that Ellie is no longer a construct in this one? I'm assuming that's just an art mistake.
Where's Ellie at?
She's hovering behind Kelly, talking to her about having her headache and stuff, and she's floating
Well,
behind Kelly.
but her words are in green, so maybe it's assumed.
I guess. I mean, this is the first time she's looked at like a human being and not a construct.
I mean, I'm gonna, okay, I'm just gonna be the devil's advocate and say
Oh, do it, do it.
maybe the green is alluding to the fact that she is part of the ring. I don't know. But again, that was all left untethered anyway. So we don't know what was going to happen with that because I remember you and I talking about it after Stewart's book.
It's such a weird thing to begin with. I can't believe everybody's okay with this in the first place. But like I said, she no longer looks like a construct. She's colored with normal colors. There's not even any glow about her.
And that's on that whole page too.
Yeah, it just seems odd. Even in the following pages, I don't know if that's a coloring mistake or just a general art mistake that they've forgotten about from issue to issue.
Mm.
Hard to say. Who did the artwork on this one? Jack Herbert. He's the person who did and Jack Herbert hasn't been drawing these books, so maybe he's unaware. That could be. But somebody, I mean, there is an editor on this book, right?
Well, that's just it. Like if I'm the one running this book, number one, I'm pissed off at the artist for making that mistake, and I'm going to get pissed off at the editor for making the double mistake and putting my stuff out there. You know what I mean? If that's what it is, but I don't
Right.
want to nitpick too hard because it is a good book. I just don't like her, and I don't care about.
I don't like either one of those characters. Which mean they're just extraneous.
Yeah.
And the
And
fact that everybody's okay with John doing this and this character sticking around like this.
I also am not big on Jessica sitting at a desk. She's much
Me
better in
neither.
Limited. You know, she has at least does more. But in here, if she's going to be part of the Green Lantern Corps, and they're going to make her part of the Green Lantern Corps, they make her part of the Green Lantern Corps, not sitting behind a desk running the show.
I just I know we have different opinions on the character, but I just don't feel her being in a leadership role is earned.
Well, no, and that's part of my belief too.
And
But it's a new age, so maybe that they're trying to
it's
thing. So.
it's just we got to find something for Jessica and Simon to do. So let's make them administrative people.
I mean, I guess Simon is the vice president here, or whatever that's called, second in command of the GLC.
Gantha help us.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it seems like he's got Jessica's ear, right? He's standing there the whole time, like he's
Right.
in the White House.
They have an executive VIP pancake bar for that
I
for
mean,
them.
did the Guardians even say anything? No, they're just
Not
sitting.
much of anything. They make like one line in the entire thing.
Oh,
It
I don't
says
even.
that leaves the source of energy that
Oh,
was lost to us.
there you go.
That's all they say.
Man, how far the Guardians have fallen.
Well, yeah, yeah, and I still don't understand why they have all different logos. Is it just because the spectrum is fractured? Will we eventually end up with things kind of restored more back to normal? I don't know. But the Guardians' role in this, they're just kind of sitting there. They're very passive in this whole thing.
Yeah, maybe they've worn out their welcome. They got crapped on a lot in the past. Plus, they
Yeah.
get blamed for a lot of crap that they pulled. So maybe it's better they just keep their mouths shut and see what happens. I don't know. You can put myself in their shoes, man. They've had a bad track record with what they've done with the core. So maybe they're just playing an observation role.
Maybe they're like, well, okay, you're so smart, you do it. I don't know. I don't know. That's just some of the lack of clarity about how things work now. And I like Jeremy Adams. I like him as a person. I like what he's trying to do, but I feel like in trying to make everybody happy, he's ultimately going to make nobody happy.
Yeah, well, the price you pay for fame, I guess.
It looks like Kyle is inheriting the interceptor because he and Superboy and Odyssey are off on another mission. So that's interesting.
So
Hal goes back to Earth. Hmm?
well, since we're at the Watchtower now, I'm trying to understand why Mr. Terrific is the damn know-it-all and leader of everything. Because over in the other books, he challenges the unknown. He's in charge of the Watchtower. Like he's like the head guy. And it's like, hold on. I thought Cyborg did that. Well, I know Martian Manhunter's not around. Well, he's around, but he's not around. But I thought Cyborg ran the Watchtower, but it seems like Mr. Terrific is. Right. And not only that, he's going to appear in the Superman movie.
Yeah.
You know, so I wonder why his role is becoming more prominent.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
I
know.
don't know a lot about him, and I didn't read a lot of. I never followed him as a character. I don't even know he. I know he has these orbs, and he does some kind of.
I liked him in JSA when Jeff Johns was doing his JSA run. I really liked the character there. I'm old enough that I remember the original Mr. Terrific, Terry Sloan.
Wow, I haven't heard that name in a bit.
One of the first comics I ever bought was the JSA JLA team up where Terry Sloan is killed.
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny you remember that.
Yeah, I know I do. It's crazy. But it was interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about how Adams is writing Carol in this part of the book. Um,
She seemed like she was in a hurry.
she said she was in a hurry and dismissive. And this whole I don't want to be known as Green Lantern's girlfriend bit is a little odd. It's like she's so enamored with being Star Sapphire. It's just I so want there to be a moment when she gets called for her crap because for how many years did she slag on Hal for going off and running off and playing superhero and leaving her behind and not living up to his real world obligations? And here she is who's running Ferris Air right now? And
Right.
she's like the gosh, wow, I'm a superhero thing is like the whole. I'd like to forget that whole thing in New Guardians too, but it did happen. She was also a Blackest Night. She's had some experience with some of these things, not the day in, day out things, but I can't see her as being the kind of character that would get so wrapped up in that she'd forget who she is as a human being.
Yeah, I agree.
Or that for having a relationship with Hal and having not seen him in a while would brush by him and not say anything. Uh, that's far worse than Hal has ever did to her when it comes to those kind of things. But anyway, so they're dealing with this guy called the Mind Bomber, which I did some digging. I could not find anything about Mind Bomber. I think it's an original character. I think it's probably just a throwaway. But Carol and Hal shows up and foils his efforts. I did like the interplay where she does the "Don't worry, the Justice League is here to save the day," and Hal's kind of got that little bit of a smirk, like, and then she's like, "Yeah, well, Superman said we should announce ourselves. It puts people at ease." And Hal's like, "Yeah, totally. That was great." I, I think it's some nice little interplay between the two. I loved Hal making the donut constructs. I thought that was kind of hysterical.
Yeah. That's the one. Where do you put him on his wrist, didn't he? Or no, he put them around them. Yeah.
Yeah, like giant inner tubes. What did you think about Bones and Hector Hammond showing up and Hector Hammond suddenly being back to air quote normal?
Yeah, it took me a bit. It took me because she said I was like, "Who is that?" Because the first thing I looked at was them two standing there, and I was like, "Who the heck?" I thought it was Max Lord at first.
Right. And there was a time when Hector Hammond did look like this. So I don't know what's happening. As this book unfolds, we find out that whatever happened to make him go back to this way, and I don't know what it is. I don't recall ever seeing it anywhere. Maybe somebody out there who's listening or watching has seen that happen, but he's trying to get back to his old ways, obviously, as we find out as things unfold. And then we go off to the Reach and we see the team in the Interceptor flying backwards again, by the way.
I was I was waiting for you to. I was looking at it. I was like, I wonder how long it's going to be before you say something about that.
We see Kyle manifesting the Han Solo blaster, which I thought was kind of funny. Question for you is that Ted Cord that says help me? I'm trying to figure out who the bearded figure is.
Looks like Ollie Queen. Oh, wait a minute. That is look over to the right.
Right.
That's
I was
Myron
looking
in
at
back.
the beetle shaped vehicle, and that's what made me think Ted Cord.
But it looks like Oliver Queen.
Yeah, it's strange. It's strange. And why would Oliver Queen be out in the far depths of space? Or why would Ted Cord for all that matter? Definitely a mystery, which it obviously means something, and we're going to find out. But at this point in time, I'm not sure who it is. Again, I only say Ted Cord because of the Beetle vehicle in the back. And I'm not sure what the current status of Ted Cord is. I thought Ted Cord was back among the living. So that's one reason why I went there.
Yeah.
That in the Beetle ship. I'm not sure who else it could be. We'll find out, I hope, next issue. But I thought it was kind of interesting. A neat little thread of a plot that's being thrown in there. Obviously, it's not throwaway. Can't imagine that.
Mm-mm.
And we don't get any more about that in the rest of this issue. We see Hector Hammond doing Hector Hammond things, and then Dove joins Hal and Carol as they go on a mission to see what's going on with Hector Hammond. I thought that the interplay, the relationship between Dove and Carol is nice. I like that. Not much else to say other than that. It was nice to see Dove show up. It just seems like this book is becoming less of a Green Lantern book and more of a DC book with all kinds of characters thrown in it, which isn't the worst thing, but I'd like more Green Lantern in my Green Lantern book, to be honest.
Sooner or later it's gonna be Titans. Wasn't Dove part of Titans?
I think so. I think so. But obviously, she's uncovered that Hector Hammond is doing some weird, wacky stuff, as we see in the last full page spread there.
Yeah.
When I looked at that, the first thing that jumped in my head was Reanimator.
Huh? What did he do with his head then?
Well, it looks like he injected himself. Like he's took something, like he sucked something out of Mind Bomb's brain, some brain fluid, and injected it into his own brain is what it looks like.
Well, then it says Hector Unleashed, Hell, and Silver Mysteries. I wonder if that Silver Banshee had something to do with that.
Yeah, I don't know. There's all kinds of little things happening in here that are setting things up. It just I'm enjoying it for the most part. I almost feel like it lacks focus, but maybe as we see more, it'll come back into focus. And I don't mean that as a negative complaint or anything like that. It just feels a little, the picture seems a little blurry right now.
I agree.
But I don't
Well,
mind that.
there were solid issues, though.
Yeah, yeah, they were enjoyable. They were quick flip throughs. I just feel like in some ways it's becoming less of a Green Lantern book. But this may be temporary. They're setting something up, I think, and we'll see. We'll see where it goes. It's certainly better than the last run we had, and I'm enjoying it still. There's fun things to be had, and it's enjoyable. I'm not sure. I'm I'm trying not to have expectations because if you have expectations that and they're not met, then you feel disgruntled or unhappy. And I don't feel unhappy with this book at all. I'm just very unclear as to where it's going and unclear about some of the things that are happening because I feel like we're running 90 miles an hour. Maybe it's left over from Jeremy Adams writing The Flash. We're going so quickly that we're leaving out detail that's important to the reader. But
Well, and not only that, we're what 21 issues in. That's not counting the halfway point where the first arc ended, or whatever you want to call, whatever you want to say. I thought we would have gained more speed by now, but I guess uh, I
yeah,
don't know.
I don't know. I don't know.
It's nice that Starbreaker that they bring back the Starbreaker character to be the big bad. I like when they rehash old characters and reinvent the wheel, so to speak. I mean, it was
Yeah.
done with Black Hand, it worked.
Yeah, I mean, there's some really interesting characters in DC's past that have been left unused for years.
Mhm.
Why not use some of their potential and bring them back out and do something new with them? It was great to see when we saw the controllers back again
Right.
and so on. So I think it's neat to see Starbreaker back. I just would like to see more of that Starbreaker plot. I guess maybe that's where I'm thinking is almost like there's too many plots to keep
Well,
track of that it
sooner
doesn't
or
seem
later
cohesive.
they gotta combine, or they're gonna
Yeah.
they're gonna converge at some point. They have to. I mean, because you got Kyle and them at the source wall, and then of course they find whoever they found that's tied up. I'm sure that's going to lead to some kind of revelation with Starbreaker at some point. You know, it's got to. I mean,
Is
they have to at least tie up those ends, I would hope.
Sure, sure. It just seems a little discombobulated right now, but maybe it'll all coalesce as we go on. All right, well, we've been on for quite a while, so why don't we skip the listener feedback and we'll save that for the next episode? Because you and I got to talk Green Lantern Corps #2, and we also have the first issue of Absolute Green Lantern to talk about. So we'll be back and do that in a couple weeks, and then we'll just include all the listener feedback together.
And we can do, if you want, we can even do you want to do the dark? Are we doing the dark? Are we going to include Green
I,
Lantern?
I thought maybe we'd wait until it was over. I haven't been buying it because I was going to wait and buy it
Yeah,
and trade.
that's fair. I haven't read it yet. Let me rephrase that. I want to go back and I want to read like the first six, maybe. I think they're only on three right now. So
Yeah,
I
I'm
want
not sure. There were some delays. I'm not sure where it's at right now.
So right now I'm just kind of backlogging them and I'm going to read them straight through to
Yeah.
see how I take it. Because if I read some of the first issue, I didn't really like it that much. So
I didn't either, and I felt like because it was the first issue, I got the impression this is going to read better as a collected thing, especially because
maybe,
it's a limited series. It's going to be a one and done story.
sure.
But all right, well then let's take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll wrap everything up.
What up, dweebs? This is Guy Gardner. You're listening to the podcast of OA.
Fellow Owens, welcome back. It felt good to be back on the mic again. So I get anxious when it gets long, and I get worried about you. Of course, I'm worried about you the whole goddamn time. Because I'm like, man, I hope Myron's okay. I hope he's just not being. Oh, I can't do it tonight. I felt like you were doing worse than what you were saying, and you were
Yeah,
just
no, I was
putting it
just
on.
so freaking tired.
No, but we talked, and that's cool, and it's nice to be on here again.
Yeah, it is. It is. I just have been finding you and I record in the evenings, and I was running out of gas too early in the day that I didn't feel like it was fair to our listeners for me to record if I'm not in my best. Yeah, but um
You're still the best, so it doesn't matter.
yeah. But anyway, uh so we'll be back. Let's get together. I'm out of town all of next weekend, but I'm on vacation the week after. So let's get together in 2 weeks and
Okay.
let's do Green Lantern Corps #2 and Absolute Green Lantern #1, and then a big listener feedback section to get caught up on all that.
And I think by then, GL 22 will probably be out.
Probably. So I think we've got some good content to keep us going.
Yeah, we're fine. We'll do that in a
But
couple weeks. I like it.
sounds good to me. Sounds good to me. I am glad to be back in the saddle. It's only going to get better from here. Um, I'm still flipping people off and saying it was poor muscle control, and I meant you with thumbs up. But um,
I'd be using that all the time. I did. I just, I'm like, my hands are stuck this way.
but anyway, it's great to be back, and I'm glad that we're recording and doing some stuff, and I can't wait to get together again in a couple weeks.
Absolutely, buddy. And I'm glad you're doing good.
All right, my friends. Until next time, treat each other well, keep your power ring charged, and make every day your brightest day. Make it a promise. It's a promise. You got to promise me. Take it easy, everybody.
See you guys.
Thanks so much for watching this Green Lantern video from the blog of Voa. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find even more great Green Lantern videos, reviews, podcasts, and more at our main website, www.blogofoa.com. So until next time, keep your power ring charged and make every day your brightest day.